I'm Aisha. I'm the Director of Education with the Epilepsy Foundation of Greater Chicago. I'm joined by three amazing young ladies today, and I would like you to introduce yourself. Tell me who you are and how old you are.
Yeah, so my name is Nyla. I'm 18, and I was diagnosed when I was 14.
My name is Isabel. I'm 15, and I was diagnosed when I was 11.
And I'm Dr. Takia Hurd. I am a pediatric epileptologist and, happy to have treated these two beautiful young ladies. And I'm happy that they are here to sort of express their story.
Well, I've known you for several years, and so they are so lucky to be in your care. So that's wonderful. Nyla, self-advocacy is often born from an adversity. So I'd like you to tell me a little bit about yourself and a story that kind of brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I feel like a good story is my diagnosis story. So I was diagnosed my freshman year of high school when I was 14, and I saw Dr. Hurd shortly after. And so that threw a big kink into a lot of my high school plans. I was already planning on joining the track team. Had a bunch of homework I had to do, a bunch of classes I needed to study for. When I kind of got back to school, I made sure to communicate with all of my teachers that this is what had happened. I also made sure to communicate with the nurses, my friends. So I feel like that's a good example of self-advocacy. My very first diagnosis, kind of learned a lot then.
Yeah, and communication seems to be the big theme.
Right, absolutely.
For you. That's wonderful. Isabel, could you please tell me a time when you had to advocate for yourself?
So I had to advocate for myself in school in terms of receiving information. If I had a seizure, then I missed out the piece of information. So I had to have it told again to me. And then in terms of medications, I was having complications with my medicine. So I had to advocate first to my parents, and then I had to advocate again to Dr. Hurd to get on the right medication.
Dr. Hurd, what else would you like to see from your patients? I think they're great role models. How else are you teaching self-advocacy in your patients?
I just try really hard to make sure that I answer all of their questions, regardless of their age, and try to make sure that I give them the answers in a way in which they can understand it. And then furthermore, give them as much literature, their parents' literature, their friends' literature, and then furthermore, move forward with making sure that they're aware of their next step in life. So whether you're, turning into the double digits and you're now going to be in middle school, or now you're going to be in high school or college, whenever you go through that new transition, how life is going to change. As you go into college, you're going to be much more independent, and you're not going to necessarily have somebody to remind you to take meds. How are you going to do this for yourself? Let's try to do an alarm for your phone, or let's try to wear a bracelet if you are working on trying to be able to advocate for yourself and tell others about it. But these two young ladies have done a wonderful job of being able to open up their mouth and tell their friends and their family and their loved ones that that's what they have.
Wonderful. You've done an amazing job.
Thanks.
So how are you living your daily life, whether it's mindfulness, medication, support from friends? How do you get through every day?
It's all about consistency. I'm a very organized person. I need to schedule for me personally. So it's just waking up every single day, making sure my medicine is at hand, taking that on the dot, along with my other medicines. That just kind of keeps a nice routine for me, because that's the main thing I'd have to do to manage my epilepsy. And if I do go out, I know flashing lights for me can be a problem, like if I'm at a concert or something like that. Just being mindful of those things specifically, just little things that you wouldn't necessarily consider.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like some advice that you might give to someone else is to be consistent. Absolutely. And to know your triggers.
Yes.
Very good. And Isabel, do you have some words of wisdom for future people coming into your shoes?
I would just say to be aware of what your needs are in terms of epilepsy, because epilepsy, it's not something that defines you. It's more of like bumps in the road that you have to learn how to overcome.
Yeah, I think that's the most important message, is that when we are our own self-advocate, we can feel safe, we can be confident, we can accomplish the things that maybe we thought we couldn't. Right. So it's important to understand what those tools are and to have those role models and to be able to be successful.
I would also say, I know a lot of people who do have epilepsy feel some sort of shame or guilt. Do not feel shame. So many people are going through the same thing, and it doesn't make you any less you.
I agree. And I believe that once we start sharing stories, we can break down the stigma, we can desensitize epilepsy.
Right.
Yes.
Wonderful. We're here today because of these amazing books. So I would love for you to take a peek and go down memory lane, and I want to hear your reactions.
Yeah, I never really expected for me to be in a book. That's not something I ever thought about. So yeah, it's really cool. and like the detail of like the describing like my story about how I first found out that I have seizures and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, I just remember going through the process of everything, like all the questions that were asked. Like, how do you do this? What does your bed look like that you take the medicine on? All right here.
Amazing. Do you feel that each book tells your story the way you
Yes,
want it?
I feel like very accurately
Wonderful.
too.
Very accurately.
That's so great. So I would like to hear from each one of you what brought you to here and what was the experience like to be in this book?
So for me, I think representation of people of color, especially women, is very important. And I see very few people of color with epilepsy. So I just want any little boy or girl seeing these comics to understand that there are people that look like them with this condition, and that people that look like them with this condition are thriving the same way that they can.
It was important for me to have my voice in this book because my experience was a little bit different. I was surprised that I was introduced into this comic book because I thought that I would just like go on my journey with epilepsy and then we'd be done. But I feel like since my road with epilepsy has been sort of different and sort of tough in a way, I feel like this was kind of like the cherry on top for me.
Wow. So do you feel that this book is going to help you tell your story a little bit better?
Yes, I think it'll help a lot because it has a good way of explaining like what my epilepsy is, and what to do in case I have a seizure, and just be more informed on it.
And Dr. Hurt, can you tell us how we arrived here? What were the thought processes that you had to get this book in process?
Big thing is just, again, education and awareness, and making sure that I could find a forum and a medium in which the kids that are older, so 10 years old to 20 years old, can find a way in which they can learn about their epilepsy, recognize that there's other people in the world that look like them that also have epilepsy, and they could sort of relate to those kids. And make it something that was fun. And so a comic book through Jumo Health is a great way in which this could be done. And, to have, somebody that successfully went through it to tell their story in a way in which I can't help with, being that I don't have epilepsy, but I just know a lot about it. But to have their personal experience is paramount.
And are you finding that you're sharing this with other patients, and how are they reacting to these books?
Wonderfully. I mean, I try to pass out these as much as possible and as often as possible. And some of my patients come to me not necessarily for epilepsy, but they know somebody that has epilepsy, and then this helps them with their understanding of it. And then oftentimes some of the other patients that have epilepsy, they say that, oh yeah, I appreciate, you telling me about this because I thought I was the only one. Or, this person is also experiencing many of the things that I was experiencing. And so it allows it to come to their level, their age group, for them to be able to express it.
And something that we have to also talk about in advocacy is the so what. Like, why is this important? So I kind of like to ask the opposite question is, what happens if we don't have these books? What happens to that story?
I believe that knowledge is power. So just making people as aware as possible of epilepsy, of the condition, of different types of epilepsy, goes such a long way. So I feel like without these comics, just displaying it in such an easy manner too, instead of like long pamphlets. Nobody's gonna willingly like look through pages and paragraphs of this condition that they know nothing about. So just having an easily accessible way of gaining that information and knowledge is not only helpful, but like I said, knowledge is power, and you're gaining more.
Well, I want to thank each one of you for being here today and for sharing your story. I definitely have walked away having learned something, and I know each of you have learned something with each other. I just want to thank you again, and we look forward to seeing what's next for each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.